Hey there, I'm the MadCatster. Am I glad to see you here? Well, Logan Paul has finally filed a lawsuit against YouTuber Coffeezilla, saying that he is ruining his reputation because of the videos he's made, calling Logan Paul a scammer for his CryptoZoo fiasco. We're going to talk about what Logan Paul is saying. We're going to break it down. You know me, I've got the deets and all the receipts, so buckle up and let's go. So I'm here tonight with Miss Clarice, who is being very chatty tonight. Thank you guys for joining me. Please like and subscribe. I've got some people to thank for buying me coffee at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. But Logan Paul. So basically this whole CryptoZoo thing was people were going to buy these CryptoZoo egg NFTs, which they would then hatch and breed and make these strange hybrid animals. But I think from what I understand, originally people were just going to buy them with cryptocurrency. And then members of his team came up with a zoo token. And that's where the problem happened, where a couple of the members of the team ended up speculating on the zoo tokens and buying them up and selling them as the value went up when they were released to the public and making a huge profit off of it. And so that was part of the issue, not just the fact that the game didn't come to fruition, but that a lot of people lost money on this because of these guys who speculated. And once they sold all their tokens and made the money, of course the value dropped. And it was a big mess. The game never came to be. Logan Paul ended up blaming the people he hired to create it. Coffeezilla made a series of videos saying that people got scammed. Basically, that was Coffeezilla's biggest beef with this whole thing, and the fact that Logan Paul hadn't taken accountability. Logan Paul then later went on to say that the coin was not his idea and that it was created by the other people working on the game. But we'll talk about that because it's in the lawsuit. The other part of it was the game never came to be. And, you know, people had bought these eggs and they were waiting to play the game. And Logan Paul kept saying, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And it never came. And even after Coffeezilla made his series saying that people got scammed, Logan Paul said, the game is coming, it's still coming. Now, to the best of my knowledge, he's acknowledged that the game is not going to happen. And there was an egg buyback that only bought back like some of the eggs. We'll talk about that too in a minute. So, Coffeezilla, the first several videos he made, Logan Paul threatened to sue him. They then kind of came to some kind of a truce, and it looked like that was the end of it. But then Logan Paul said, well, Coffeezilla made a few more videos after the egg buyback. And what Coffeezilla basically was saying was, well, that didn't go far enough because people lost a lot of money in the currency with the CryptoZoo coin. And those people didn't get any compensation. So whoever you want to give more weight to, it's up to you. But let's take a look at the lawsuit that he's now filed against Coffeezilla. And we're going to skip some big chunks of it because it's basically almost like a puff piece in the beginning where his attorneys are basically telling Logan Paul's life story. And, you know, all his whole career and everything. It's like, well, why do we need to know this? So let's take a look. Logan Paul versus Stephen Findyson in Coffee Break Productions LLC, doing business as Coffeezilla. He's asking for a jury trial. It says the plaintiff Logan Paul for his complaint against defendant Stephen Findyson and Coffee Break Productions LLC DBA Coffeezilla alleges as follows. And instead of saying Stephen Findyson, I'm just going to say Coffeezilla. The nature of the action, so I'm just going to read just a little bit of this and then we're going to skip out. Plaintiff Logan Paul, a globally recognized entertainer, athlete, and entrepreneur, brings this defamation action against defendant Stephen Findyson, aka Coffeezilla, a self-described investigative journalist and internet detective with no actual journalism training or a private investigator's license. I mean, come on, really? To hold him accountable for maliciously and repeatedly publishing false statements accusing Paul of operating a scam in connection with a troubled blockchain project called CryptoZoo. Starting when he released a 3-part YouTube series on CryptoZoo in December 2022 and continuing into the present, Coffeezilla has perpetuated the false narrative that Paul scammed and defrauded his own fans in connection with the project. Coffee has perpetuated this fake narrative despite knowing it to be completely and utterly false in order to enhance his own profile and increase his viewership and income in the process. And indeed, he has done, despite being in possession of and purposefully omitting from his series and related statements overwhelming objective evidence that Paul had, in reality, been enthusiastic about the project and deeply committed to its success, only to be deceived by several of the project's trusted advisors who turned out to be con men. Okay, I'm glad he's enthusiastic, but that doesn't help people who lost money. In early 2021, Paul conceived of CryptoZoo from an animal fusion concept he had seen go viral in other contexts. CryptoZoo was to be a game utilizing blockchain technology in which players would be able to purchase egg, non-fungible tokens, NFTs, that would then hatch into animal NFTs. Players would then be able to breed those animals to create unique and ever rarer hybrid animals, which would earn players an in-game cryptocurrency called zoo tokens based on their rarity. All of this activity would be carried out in a virtual ecosystem where animals could continue to be bred, traded, used for mini arcade games, or sold to earn more zoo tokens. To develop the project and navigate the intricacies of blockchain technology, of which Paul was unfamiliar, Paul assembled a team of experts, or as it turned out, individuals who falsely represented themselves as experts and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of his own money on graphics and animation and other project-related expenses. Something telling me that's a drop in the bucket for him. But anyway, although CryptoZoo was announced publicly and certain aspects of the project were rolled out in the fall of 2021, Paul's vision for the game never became a reality. There were multiple reasons for the project's failure, but the most fundamental was that the team member responsible for overseeing the development of the game, Eduardo Eddie Ibanez, turned out to be a charlatan who had lied to Paul and many others about his background and credentials. Ibanez continuously assured Paul that the game's development was proceeding apace and that completion was imminent, when in reality, he had incompetently overseen the process and failed to pay his team of developers despite his assurances that he would do so. Paul's efforts were also stymied and frustrated by a blockchain and crypto advisor named Jake Greenbaum, aka Crypto King, who turned out to be more interested in trying to personally profit than in helping to create a legitimate project. Both Ibanez and Greenbaum took advantage of the hype created by Paul's affiliation with the project in order to surreptitiously sell zoo tokens for millions of dollars at the expense of those acquiring tokens in anticipation of actually being able to play the game. Regrettably, despite rightfully exposing the wrongdoing of Ibanez and Greenbaum in his YouTube series, defendant Coffee understood that accusing a celebrity like Paul of perpetuating a scam would generate exponentially more clicks, views, and ultimately revenue, and would increase his own profits. I mean, obviously, Coffeezilla makes videos to make money, but something tells me that that wasn't his only motivation in making this series. Coffee therefore titled his series Investigating Logan Paul's Biggest Scam, and he proceeded to confidently tell his viewers not only that the project was a scam, but that there was a scam conceived of and perpetuated by Paul. The three-part series was viewed tens of millions of times, each of the videos remaining among Coffee's most popular of all time, and viewers in the public at large were captivated by the narrative of an unserious social media influencer who had supposedly used his fame to dupe his fans into investing money into a fake crypto project while always intending to abscond with the money. But Coffee knew full well that Paul had never set out to scam anybody, but to the contrary, had always intended to build a legitimate blockchain-based game for participants to enjoy with a like-minded community. In addition to knowing that Paul did not profit from the project in any way, Coffee possessed scores of contemporaneous internal text messages between Paul and his co-founders, showing, for example, that Paul was adamant that the project be executed to perfection before being announced publicly, and that Paul was focused on the details of the gameplay experience, including over financial gain, that Paul was explicitly relying upon Greenbaum and Ibanez for all aspects of the game's development and implementation, including the timing and logistics of creating and trading the zoo token liquidity pool, and that Paul was beside himself with frustration about the betrayals that prevented his vision from being realized. Yet because they did not fit his preferred self-serving narrative, Coffee purposefully concealed all those communications from his viewers, save for select messages that he manipulated and intentionally presented devoid of context. Although Paul considered taking legal action against Coffee at the time his YouTube series was released at the end of 2022, he decided to instead focus his efforts on trying to make things right with those who had shared his enthusiasm for CryptoZoo only to be left disappointed when it failed to materialize. In January 2023, Paul announced that he was working on a buyback program for disappointed CryptoZoo NFT holders, even though Paul had not personally received the proceeds from the sale of these NFTs or otherwise earned any money from the project whatsoever. The buyback was complete in March 2024, so basically for less than 2 months, and it resulted in Paul successfully coming out of pocket to distribute over $1 million worth of Ethereum to eligible NFT holders. Now, I don't know what the total sales were, but something tells me that that's not the vast majority of the people who bought these tokens. Despite his anger over Coffee's actions and the massive harm that Coffee's false accusations caused to his reputation, massive harm. So, doesn't he have like a super successful Prime Energy drink? Doesn't he continue to do other projects as well? I don't perceive that his reputation has been massively harmed. Paul was initially willing to let bygones be bygones. After all, Coffee had claimed all along that his CryptoZoo investigation was motivated by a desire to call attention to regular people who had purchased CryptoZoo NFTs only to see their investment become worthless. Paul naively believed that his commitment to the buyback program would help him find common ground with Coffee in that regard. But Paul misjudged Coffee's motives. Even after Paul announced the buyback, Coffee simply could not help himself from dipping back into the well that had proven so effective in earning him viewers' attention and revenue, both from his YouTube earnings as well as an associated Patreon account that he used to solicit donations from subscribers. In the summer of 2023 and continuing into 2024, Coffee began publishing additional YouTube videos, which he also teased and hyped on X, formerly Twitter, in which he again repeatedly claimed to the public the false allegation that CryptoZoo was a scam and a fraud conceived of and perpetrated by Paul. Throughout the ups and downs of his career, including the CryptoZoo disappointment, Paul has learned to believe in the importance of accountability and taking responsibility for one's actions when you've been called out. Paul brings this defamation suit to hold Coffee accountable for his actions and to hold him liable for the immense harm that he has caused to Paul's reputation through the intentional and reckless dissemination of defamatory falsehood. Then it talks about the parties. So factual allegations. Now, here starts the giant biography on Logan Paul's whole life story, basically. And this is the part we're going to skip a lot of. Logan Paul builds a highly successful career and personal brand, and in the process learns a valuable lesson about the importance of one's reputation. Paul's path to becoming a globally recognized entertainer, athlete, and entrepreneur can be traced to his days as a student at Ohio University. And so now we're going to skip. There's a huge part here where they go over all of his, like starting with his education and his early career and Vine and YouTube and Disney and blah, blah, blah. Then in 2015, at a time when terms like content creator and influencer had barely entered the public consciousness, Paul decided to take a giant leap of faith and become a pioneer in the burgeoning digital entertainment market. Paul's leap of faith and exhaustive work paid off. By 2016, he had amassed nearly 20 million followers across his social media platforms. During this time, Paul also expanded his reach outside of digital media by securing acting roles in the more traditional entertainment industry, including guest starring roles on Law & Order SVU and Disney's Bizaardvark. When Vine shut down in early 2017, Paul adapted and transitioned to publishing content to his YouTube channels. Paul traveled to Japan with friends to produce a series of vlog episodes called Tokyo Adventures. We know what happened there in the woods in Japan, and this is when he was called out for doing something reprehensible, and that's when he learned his lesson, I guess, because he realized he was going to be canceled because he did something he shouldn't have done. And it took people calling him out for him to realize, I guess, that it was not really a very good idea or probably morally correct to do what he did. The blowback against Paul justifiably was swift and relentless. In the face of this overwhelming criticism, Paul took the video down and posted a series of apologies in which he expressed shame and disappointment in himself. The harsh blowback took a toll on Paul's own mental health as he attempted to reevaluate himself and his decision-making. Paul not only lost lucrative opportunities, but also valued personal relationships. In 2018, Paul, who had been training in boxing, began leaning into his athletic prowess and promoted a successful white-collar boxing match Between himself and fellow YouTuber KSI, he then launched a podcast called Impulsive, in which he engages in frank conversation with friends. In 2021, Paul announced and marketed a boxing match between himself and legendary world champion boxer Floyd Mayweather Jr., which aired on Showtime and became one of the most successful pay-per-views in 2021. In 2022, Paul co-founded a sport and energy drink company called Prime Hydration LLC, which has become extremely successful, surpassing $1.2 billion in annual sales in 2023. I'm going to skip more of it. Paul delves into the digital asset market and develops an idea for a blockchain game called CryptoZoo that incorporates NFTs. In 2020, non-fungible tokens, NFTs, began to experience rapid growth in the nascent digital asset market, which had largely been centered around cryptocurrencies. Unlike cryptocurrencies, which operate as a form of digital currency, NFTs are more akin to a valuable collectible. How many people who bought NFTs saw them increase in value? Because as far as I know, some of the more popular ones lost value. Like an original piece of artwork or musical recording, each NFT is one of a kind and non-fungible, meaning it is irreplaceable and cannot be copied, substituted, or subdivided. They generally exist in the form of an image file, and when someone purchases an NFT, the original digital asset is recorded on a blockchain, which is globally accessible. This record provides proof of ownership and value for the NFT. Value is driven by the market, so it depends if people want to pay for it, how much they want to pay for it, who wants to pay for it. It's not like the value is just a set value. Ever the entrepreneur and innovator, Paul began to explore the digital asset market in 2020 and experiment with creating NFTs. From there, Paul contemplated a blockchain game that incorporated NFTs so that players could have fun using and trading their digital assets rather than letting them sit in digital wallets. In early 2021, Paul fleshed this out and came up with an idea for a blockchain game based on an Animal Fusion concept that later became known as CryptoZoo, the game. Paul had seen the Animal Fusion concept go viral in other contexts, so he knew people enjoyed it, and he was also inspired by his love of Pokemon, a Japanese media franchise that included video games, trading cards, and animated series and films. In the CryptoZoo game, as Paul imagined it, players could acquire egg NFTs that would hatch a base animal, and players with multiple base animals in their collection could then breed these animals to create a hybrid animal NFT within the game's virtual ecosystem. Understanding that he did not possess the technical expertise, relevant experience, or time necessary to turn his vision into reality, Paul and his management team worked to assemble a team of experts in the digital asset market and game development to help bring the concept to life. To that end, in early 2021, Paul's management team evaluated potential candidates from within Paul's social and professional networks and identified Jake Greenbaum and Eddie Ibanez as qualified candidates, and both agreed to join the project. Now, let me ask you this. If I'm a business owner and I am vetting people, I'm going to delve into their backgrounds. I'm not just going to take their word for what they do. People lie. They lie on their resumes too. I'm actually going to check references and stuff. So while they evaluated these candidates, why didn't they delve deeper into their backgrounds where they probably would have discovered discrepancies in what they held themselves out to be and maybe avoided this whole mess in the first place? Just a thought. Early on in the February 2021 timeframe, Greenbaum and Ibanez recommended creating and incorporating a token into the game. The animal NFTs were to yield zoo tokens to players in amounts that varied depending on the rarity of the animal they owned. The purpose of the zoo token was to be for use in the CryptoZoo game ecosystem, with players able to spend the tokens in a virtual marketplace and on a variety of in-game features and enhancements. Given his purported expertise in the digital asset market, Greenbaum agreed to act as an advisor on all blockchain and cryptocurrency-related aspects of the project, including the advantages and disadvantages of selling NFTs on the Ethereum blockchain network versus the Binance Smart Chain network. He was also responsible for the economics and utility of the zoo tokens and NFTs, including the amounts that would be created, allocation, pricing, and in-game fees, and so forth. Ibanez, who claimed to have attended MIT, to have worked for various government agencies and professional sports teams, and to have created his own successful marketing and analytics firm, was responsible for leading the game's development efforts, which included putting together and managing a team of developers, to work on gameplay, user interface, and website design. Like Greenbaum, Ibanez also claimed to be very knowledgeable about cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, and the attributes of successful projects in this space, and he too acted as an advisor in these areas. For his part, Paul focused on creating rules for the game, assigning names and rarities to the featured animals, providing the high-level input on in-game features, design, and functionality, and assisting in the hiring and oversight of graphics artists for the game. To that end, Paul hired over 10 artists and animators to begin working on creating the artwork and animation for the game. Paul also agreed to be responsible for marketing and promoting the game, but he was adamant about not announcing or promoting the game publicly until development was in its final stages, signaling his devotion to and faith in the project. In the early months of development, Paul incurred $220,000 in out-of-pocket expenses, most of which went to paying artists. Then he goes on to say, Greenbaum and Ibanez sabotaged and undermined the CryptoZoo project, ultimately leading to its failure. Consistent with their roles and responsibilities, Paul relied upon the purported expertise of Greenbaum and Ibanez for all technical and blockchain aspects of the project, including the creation of the liquidity pool and the launch of the Zoo token, the development of the game, and all related legal and regulatory matters and industry practices. Unbeknownst to Paul, however, Greenbaum and Ibanez were con artists. Both men lied about their resumes, knowledge, experience, and intentions. Greenbaum and Ibanez sabotaged the project from within and prevented it from ever realizing Paul's vision. Following the launch of the Zoo token in June 2021 and leading up to the launch of Egg NFTs in early September 2021, both Greenbaum and Ibanez separately earned themselves millions of dollars through the surreptitious sale of Zoo tokens conducted behind the backs of Paul and the other honest members of the CryptoZoo team. Ibanez, meanwhile, misled Paul about the progress of the game and his ability to deliver it. Despite Ibanez's reputation and unequivocal assurances that development was nearing completion, which Paul relied upon when publicly announcing the project on his Impulsive podcast in August 2021, in reality, it was far behind. As a result, when the Egg NFTs were released for sale on September 3rd, 2021, the first step of what was supposed to be a multi-step rollout of the game, the sale experienced significant technical issues and delays that signaled to Paul for the first time that he had been misled. As Paul wrote to his co-founders following the Egg sale, the problem is that we are extremely understaffed, under-equipped, under-experienced, and bit off more than we can chew, and none of it was relayed to me. Far from profiting from participating in or even acquiescing to the deceptive conduct and ineptitude of Greenbaum and Ibanez, Paul did everything in his power to get the project back on track. With regard to Greenbaum, Paul took steps to remove him from the project altogether in August 2021 once he learned of Greenbaum's surreptitious and unapproved sales of Zoo tokens, even going as far as launching a new Zoo token and blacklisting all wallets associated with Greenbaum. When Paul realized that Ibanez was incapable of delivering the game following the Egg sale, he insisted on bringing on additional developers immediately, regardless of the cost, confronted with yet additional deception and corresponding delays in the week after the Egg NFT sale, including one of Ibanez's developers stealing the code to the game, which caused the development team to have to remint the Zoo token and airdrop the replacement version to holders yet again. From September 2021 through 2022, Paul's manager and other advisors worked to get the project back on track, including by hiring new development teams to take over Ibanez's responsibilities. During that time, Paul would receive updates and was assured the project was progressing, albeit slowly, as they now had to work backwards to address all of the problems and issues created by Ibanez. All the while, Paul pushed for transparency with the CryptoZoo community, telling his team in June 22, for example, that someone should explain what's going on and be transparent about funds, because I'm curious too. Near the end of 2022, Paul's coming to terms with the fact that the project might never be completed, despite his best efforts to salvage it. On December 14, 2022, Paul emailed his manager, Jeffrey Levin, and expressed a desire to do whatever we can to make this right with those who had believed in CryptoZoo. For the avoidance of doubt, CryptoZoo was Paul's passion project, and his failure was devastating for Paul, who had invested significant time, energy, and funds to the project. Notwithstanding his own errors of judgment, Paul had nothing but good intentions for the project. All he ever wanted was to create a fun blockchain-based digital collectibles game, and I'm sure not make money at it. I'm sure that wasn't his intention either. Unlike Ibanez and Greenbaum, Paul never sold a single Zoo token or NFT or made any profit whatsoever from the game. To the contrary, Paul lost hundreds of thousands of dollars because of Ibanez and Greenbaum's incompetence and deception. Unfortunately, despite Coffee's admitted access to contemporaneous project communications that made unmistakably clear Paul's good intentions, Coffee perceived an opportunity to increase his viewership and profile and enrich himself in the process by distorting the public narrative to falsely portray the saga of CryptoZoo as a scam perpetrated by Paul. In July 2021, Coffee published a video titled Logan Paul's New Crypto Coin is an Embarrassment, which focused on a meme token called Dink Doink. I don't know if any of you remember that. In that video, Coffee falsely accused Paul of participating in what he characterized as a Ponzi scheme, alleging Paul promoted the token and concealed his involvement in its creation for the purpose of enriching himself in an eventual sell-off. There was no truth whatsoever to Coffee's allegations of bad intent. Paul's trading activity involving the token, which was not discussed at all in the video, was limited, and although Paul was allocated Dink Doink tokens by its founder, he never sold these tokens and they sit in his digital wallet to this day. Probably worthless. But the Dink Doink video nevertheless received nearly 800,000 views. Why is that important? And Coffee was learning that intersectional cryptocurrency and social media influencers, and especially Paul, was of great I don't think it's just Paul, because they're talking about how his breakout video was on that Save the Kids coin. So Logan Paul, I think, is taking a little too much credit for Coffeezilla's success. Coffee seeks to drum up viewership up for his channel by promoting and publishing a series of videos about what he claimed was Logan Paul's biggest scam. So now finally we get to the point of the video series. On October 16, 2022, Coffee published on his Coffeezilla YouTube account the first video in what would become a 3-part series about CryptoZoo. The first video, part 1, was entitled Investigating Logan Paul's Biggest Scam. Right off the bat, Coffee promised his audience that he would be revealing this inside story of how Paul scammed victims out of millions of dollars. He claimed that his high-effort investigation was a year in the making, and he teased, some of you guys think you know the story, but it goes so much deeper. And of course, at the center of it, we have Logan Paul, who has abandoned this thing, leaving thousands of victims in his wake. The video then introduced CryptoZoo as Paul's brainchild and explained how the game was intended to work in concept, with participants using Zoo tokens or other cryptocurrencies to purchase egg NFTs, which they could then hatch and breed to create ever rarer hybrid animals, earning additional Zoo tokens that could be used to purchase additional eggs or other in-game features. Coffee acknowledged that there was nothing particularly unusual, novel, or nefarious about this structure, as there are a lot of NFT games built on this model, which is called play to earn. Nevertheless, consistent with the name of his series, Coffee insinuated to his viewers that the real problem with CryptoZoo was that Paul had illicit intentions from the outset. Coffee claimed that those who bought CryptoZoo NFTs had been duped by Paul's portrayal of himself as this reformed influencer rather than a reckless clout goblin just in it for the money. He continued, they thought this time it's different. Logan Paul couldn't possibly scam us, right? The video then discussed the hatch day on November 3rd, 2021, and the technical difficulties and issues with the game that resulted in the inability of users to claim their yield of tokens, or in some cases, to hatch their eggs. Coffee claimed that after the trouble-filled launch on hatch day, Paul entirely washed his hands of CryptoZoo, failing to make any additional contributions and abandoning the project. He further claimed that those who had bought CryptoZoo NFTs were led on by allegedly false assurances that Paul remained invested in the project. The remainder of the video is mostly spent discussing the allegations that the CryptoZoo team failed to pay developers and owed them $1 million, although Coffee concedes that there are no written contracts to substantiate that anyone was owed that amount. The contract has to be in writing. There's something called the statute of frauds, which dictates that contracts need to be in a written form, and if there's no written contract, well, again, I put the blame on Logan Paul and his team, because they're the ones that should have developed the contract. Why they didn't, God only knows. That just seems insane to me. But anyway, part 1 concludes with a preview of part 2 of Coffee's CryptoZoo series. The preview features images of text messages between Paul and an unidentified person, with Coffee narrating a snippet of those messages. No context whatsoever is provided by Coffee, but the snippets he reads begin with the unidentified person accusing Paul of stealing $40 million in tokens, calling him a scam artist and a liar, and stating that he betrayed his own community, seemingly pleading with Paul to rectify those apparent bad acts. The unidentified person says to Paul, "You aren't that guy." And Paul responds, "Oh, trust me, bro, I am that guy." This dramatic cliffhanger ending leads the viewer to conclude that not only did Paul lie, steal, and scam, but that he brazenly admitted to it. 4 days later, on December 20th, 2022, Finlayson published part 2 on his YouTube account. That video titled "The Biggest Fraud in Logan Paul's Scam." The biggest fraud referred to in the title is Ibanez, who, as discussed, led the game's development efforts. The video details Ibanez's extensive history of exaggerating, misrepresenting, and flat-out fabricating aspects of his personal, educational, and professional background. Although none of this was known to Paul at the time Ibanez was invited to join the CryptoZoo team, or indeed after the game was publicly announced and egg NFTs were made available for sale to the public. But again, the responsibility for vetting these people and verifying their claims about what they're capable of doing lies with Logan Paul and his team. After delving into Ibanez's history of deception, which included falsely claiming to be an orphan, lying about attending MIT, blah blah blah, the video introduced another member of the CryptoZoo team, Greenbaum. Coffee stated in the video that he received a call from Greenbaum, who was willing to talk about his experience in the project. In relevant part, Coffee noted that Greenbaum was reluctant to speak on the record, but then stated that he was willing to put at least one thing on the record for me. That one thing was Greenbaum's unequivocal insistence that Ibanez was the biggest reason the project failed. In fact, Greenbaum explicitly told Coffee that Ibanez rugged the project, referring to the concept of a rug pull. Thus, in sum and substance, Greenbaum explained that Ibanez fraudulently misrepresented himself, his abilities, his intentions, and his progress as far as leading the development of the game to personally profit. Greenbaum then went even further, explaining that he was willing to go on the record specifically to rebut any suggestion that Paul was involved in Ibanez's duplicity. Greenbaum said, "I don't want it to ever be thought that Logan Paul is the reason it failed. He's not." 3 days later, on December 23rd, 2022, Coffee published part 3 of his series, a video titled "Ending Logan Paul's Biggest Scam." The opening monologue of the video promised viewers that Coffee would present the truth about CryptoZoo and identify who's to blame. To that end, the video largely focused on Coffee's interpretation of text messages among the founders that someone had leaked to him. Coffee began by reviewing messages discussing the Zoo tokens and whether to conduct a pre-sale of the tokens. Following some discussion of potential regulatory issues, it was Greenbaum who suggested to the group that instead of a pre-sale, they could do a stealth launch of the token before announcing it, which would give the founders an opportunity to buy up a portion of the existing supply before it was made available to the public. On June 11, 2021, the day the token was launched, which the founders referred to as Zoo Day, Greenbaum deceived the other founders and began secretly buying large quantities of Zoo tokens without the others' knowledge or permission, activity that had significant impact on the market capitalization of the newly created token. In the video, Coffee details how Greenbaum secretly created numerous crypto wallets that he used to surreptitiously purchase some $200,000 worth of Zoo tokens, significantly more than any of the CryptoZoo founders. In the video, Coffee explains that this is where things started to go wrong, and he presents messages among the founders in which Greenbaum appears to provide a false explanation of the suspicious trading activity, and in which Paul expresses suspicion about Greenbaum's explanation. Those messages made abundantly clear that Paul had nothing whatsoever to do with Greenbaum's illicit dealing and manipulation of the Zoo token, and to the contrary, was outraged by it. In fact, Coffee then details how in the lead up to the official CryptoZoo launch day in September 2021, i.e. the day egg NFTs were made publicly available for purchase, Paul and the other founders minted new Zoo tokens and airdropped an identical amount to certain holders of the original Zoo token, while blacklisting others. By doing so, Paul and his team took affirmative steps to exclude wallets associated with Greenbaum so that he would be unable to further manipulate the market and jeopardize the integrity of the project for his own financial gain. Only then did Coffee reveal the full context of the text exchange he teased at the end of part 1, in which an unidentified individual accuses Paul of stealing $40 million in tokens, calling him a scam artist. The unidentified individuals were revealed to be Greenbaum, and the context of the exchange is Greenbaum's complaints about Paul's efforts to stop him from manipulating the market for tokens and enriching himself at the expense of other buyers. In other words, the full context of the exchange, which Coffee misleadingly presented to viewers as evidence of Paul's involvement in a scam, actually reveals the exact opposite to be true. Nevertheless, despite the efforts to identify and blacklist Greenbaum's Zoo tokens, Greenbaum still made off with a large amount of Zoo tokens from the Zoo Day that he kept in secret crypto wallets the others were unaware of. Coffee explained that his own investigation into the blockchain transaction showed that Greenbaum was by far the biggest seller of Zoo tokens and that he netted more than $6 million from improperly buying and selling Zoo tokens without permission. Coffee further explained that his blockchain investigation revealed that Ibanez was also secretly selling Zoo tokens and that he made approximately $1.7 million from doing so. So, I mean, what they're not really saying here, I think they're kind of dancing around, is that apparently the two guys had bought up tokens in advance, it sounds like, and then when they went on the market and the price was going up, they then sold them and profited from it. Conversely, Coffee acknowledged that his investigation showed that unlike Greenbaum, neither Paul nor his manager ever sold any of the Zoo tokens they acquired on Zoo Day, which even Coffee admitted was a huge surprise. Coffee acknowledged that this was perhaps the most important thing in terms of assigning guilt to those involved with CryptoZoo. Coffee also concluded that at the end of the day, the number one problem and the true boring reason for CryptoZoo's ultimate demise was Ibanez's failure to pay the game developers on time, despite Ibanez also netting millions of dollars from illicitly selling Zoo tokens. Coffee then asserted that Paul is nevertheless not innocent in all of this because he was the face of CryptoZoo and ultimately failed to deliver a viable game. And I would agree with that. You know, in Coffee's defense, he put his face on it. He's the ultimate. I mean, you hear that expression, the buck stops here? I mean, the buck stops with Paul because he's the face and head of this whole thing. Incredibly, only in a short portion at the end of a 3-part video series repeatedly accusing Paul of operating a scam did Coffee tacitly acknowledge that there was no evidence that Paul attempted to scam anyone or that he even profited off of CryptoZoo at all. Coffee's conclusion, albeit made reluctantly and opaquely, was essentially that Paul was guilty only of putting together a team that was not up to the task and of failing to effectively manage the project. That, of course, is far different from intentionally engaging in an effort to scam people and to commit financial fraud. Coffee knew all along that his accusations that Paul engaged in a scam were not true. Despite referring to Logan Paul's scam in the name of each part of his CryptoZoo series, the reality is that Finlayson knew from the outset of the production and publication of his series that the notion that Paul was out to scam anyone was completely and utterly false. Logan Paul has a point here. Now, we're going to talk in a few minutes about what the possible legal arguments are going to be, but there is a point. I mean, in the name of basically clickbaiting or trying to entice viewers to keep watching, they do have a point about what Coffee said about Logan Paul. By definition, an accusation that someone operated a business as a scam conveys to a listener that the person engaged in a dishonest scheme with the intent to obtain money by fraudulent means. By repeatedly accusing Paul of engaging in a scam, Coffee suggested to his viewers that CryptoZoo was never a legitimate enterprise, and to the contrary, Paul intended from the beginning to take participants' money and to profit by selling NFTs and Zoo tokens without actually delivering a completed product. But the contemporaneous communications among the founders of CryptoZoo demonstrate unequivocally that Paul's focus was on building a fun blockchain-based game for participants to enjoy with a like-minded community. He never set out to scam anyone, but to the contrary, he always hoped, intended, and attempted in good faith to complete a functioning game. Coffee knew of all this before the publication of his series because, as he acknowledged and demonstrated in the course of his series, a source had leaked to him the text messages from the CryptoZoo team's group chat from the very beginning. Again, they've got a point. But unwilling to let facts get in the way of his preferred self-serving narrative, Coffee selectively excerpted and presented those messages in a manner intended to portray Paul as a scammer, even though the messages did not support this claim. Coffee knew, for example, that Paul was completely reliant upon Greenbaum and Ibanez for all aspects of the creation of the liquidity pool and launching the Zoo token, and the timing of these steps, including ensuring that they were lawfully implemented, as Paul was explicit about his reliance in his messages. Coffee purposely omitted these and other examples from his series because he knew that they flatly contradicted any serious suggestion that Paul was perpetrating a scam, as opposed to following advisors who turned out not to have the project's best interests at heart. And so then they quote one of the text messages. I didn't read all those text messages. You can go back and read them if you want. Even worse, Coffee affirmatively distorted the excerpts he did include taking them out of context in an attempt to falsely portray Paul as a knowing participant in a nefarious money grab. For example, when addressing the founder's discussion of potential regulatory issues associated with the pre-sale of tokens, Coffee noted that not everyone wanted to be cautious. According to Coffee, this illustrated a dilemma amongst Paul and his co-founders about how they could maximize the amount of money they could make from the project while minimizing legal exposure. In addition, Coffee purposefully omitted Paul's statement that he was relying on Greenbaum for guidance on this piece, saying, "I don't get this part of crypto at all," which tellingly came just several lines after the portion Coffee included in his series. Other messages make equally clear that Coffee's portrayal of Paul as money hungry was completely false. Coffee also admitted, for example, that as of August 2021, several months after the launch of the Zoo token, the exact same text message string showed that Paul was still considering whether to even include a token with the game at all, asking his co-founders whether it makes it gimmicky and the strength of our NFTs and the art can speak for itself, and it becomes solely collectible based like the banger projects right now. In fact, when Ibanez relayed to Paul that the market cap of the token had reached 100 million on August 16, 2021, Paul's response was, "Bro, who cares? Hope people find the stupid satisfaction we find with hatching their hybrids." Coffee discusses the founder's token allocations and rules for selling, characterizing such rules as a conspiracy amongst Paul and the other founders to manipulate the market. But Coffee omits messages that show unequivocally that Paul's intent was to prevent any market manipulation. If there are text messages that are authentic that back that up, that's a problem. Having never launched a token before, Paul's instinct was properly concerned over the fragility of the market and making sure nobody was in a position to control it. In other words, Coffee knew from the messages in his possession that Paul agreed to certain selling rules for the founders in order to prevent the exact type of manipulation he nevertheless proceeded to accuse Paul of conspiring to carry out. And when Paul learned that someone was taking advantage of the public announcement to sell tokens in violation of the trading rules, he was livid and immediately texted his co-founders to remind them, "Your tokens do not leave your wallet." So, I mean, to Logan Paul's credit, if that's true, it sounds like he really was trying to prevent anyone from manipulating the market and making a quick, fast buck off of it. And his team members went ahead and did it anyway. So that's on that you can't blame Logan Paul for if he really did have those rules in place. Coffee also knew from the messages, entirely inconsistent with an intent to scam, Paul had told Ibanez and Greenbaum over and over again not to rush to the development of the game, and consistently asked Ibanez for updates on development. That Paul provided extensive detailed input on in-game rules and features, had no interest in announcing the game publicly until it was perfect and flawless, and that he only made such an announcement upon being repeatedly assured by Ibanez that both the egg NFT sale and the game were good to go. The knowledge Coffee had from these messages was underscored by his own investigation, which showed Paul never sold a single Zoo token. Coffee's allegation that Paul had wiped his hands of and abandoned the project was also false, as Paul's team continued to try to get the project back on track all the way up until the release of Coffee's CryptoZoo series and after. In fact, Paul's team ultimately was able to successfully complete the development of the game in 2023, only to eventually realize that its release was not feasible for regulatory reasons that Paul had never previously been apprised. Okay, so when you're dealing with regulatory stuff, usually you would consult an attorney. Why he was relying on these two guys to make sure that everything fit within regulatory rules. I mean, he really should have educated himself on what the regulations were and what the parameters were. So basically, they developed the game for nothing because apparently the regulations that are out there don't permit them to run it the way they were going to run it. So it seems kind of silly to me that this wasn't all hashed out at the beginning and that it wasn't discussed in depth and that these issues weren't considered at the beginning instead of just throwing the team members under the bus. Granted, they deserve a lot of the blame for what's happened, but Logan Paul deserves blame too, because again, he's the head of the project. It's his responsibility to know all of this stuff and to educate himself and to make sure that his team is vetting people so that everything goes smoothly and according to the rules. And it didn't happen in this instance. So, yes, he may not be the one who profited from the tokens, but all of this mess is partially his responsibility to have been aware of in the beginning of who these people really were. And that is on him. Basically, he says fundamentally, Coffee's repeated allegation that Paul conceived of and operated CryptoZoo as a scam also makes no sense and is inherently improbable. As an influencer whose ability to earn money is largely based on the strength of his personal brand and reputation, it would make no sense for Paul to set out to scam his own fans and supporters in a way that would inevitably be revealed, destroying his reputation in the process. And absolutely, I do agree with that. You know, as much as I'm not a fan of Logan Paul, and he's done some questionable stuff, obviously, it is problematic to me, and we'll see now what the claims are going to be, some of the stuff that Coffeezilla did. On January 13th, Paul announced an initiative whereby he pledged up to $1.3 million of personal funds to buy back all of the base egg animal NFTs from disappointed buyers. Shortly after this announcement, Paul spoke on the telephone with Coffee to move on from the dispute. Paul actually believed that the call was productive. In relevant part, Coffee expressed his belief that Paul was not a bad actor, but that he had gotten caught up with bad people in the CryptoZoo project. He complimented Paul's buyback announcement, stating that it was a noble thing to do and that he had never seen this type of initiative carried out. Given that Coffee had claimed all along that his motivation for publishing videos about CryptoZoo was to seek justice for the victims, Paul hoped and expected that he and Coffee could bury the hatchet in pursuit of a common goal. Regrettably, Paul misjudged Coffee's true motivation. Despite subjective knowledge that the accusations are not true, Coffee continues to falsely accuse Paul of scamming his fans. Paul's January 2023 efforts to seek common ground with Coffee and his announcement of the NFT buyback program appeared to bear fruit. For some 6 months, Coffee refrained from repeating his false allegations that Paul operated CryptoZoo as a scam, but in the summer of 2023, presumably for more clicks, Coffee began attacking Paul again. While the nominal impetus for his renewed intention was the supposed slow pace of Paul's buyback efforts, a pace that was unsurprising considering the amount of money involved, the safeguards required to ensure the funds got to the proper recipients. Don't they have a record of who bought them? So I don't understand why that would be such a dragged out, complicated process. And the necessity of navigating legal ramifications. And I think that's sort of a roundabout way of alluding to the fact that, and Coffeezilla raises this in his subsequent videos, that people had to sign a release of claims against Logan so that they couldn't sue him for any of the money they lost on either the NFT or the Zoo token, I believe, as well, and basically insulating Logan Paul from any lawsuits. Now, there's a class action lawsuit pending in Texas by people who did lose money on this whole thing, and they're suing Logan Paul. And Logan Paul alleges, and you'll see in a minute, we'll get to it, that he's filed suit against Greenbaum and Ibanez. There's this class action lawsuit against Paul. In that class action lawsuit, Logan Paul has cross-claimed against Ibanez and Greenbaum and basically is bringing them into the lawsuit, saying they're the ones who bear responsibility for your loss. On June 29, 2023, Coffee published a post on his Coffeezilla account on the social media site X, which he stated, "Logan Paul really is the type of dude to thank you when you expose his scam, then block you when you remind him to pay up." The post was a gross and intentional distortion of Paul's prior statements in which he referenced Coffeezilla's research as positive in the sense that it had helped expose the wrongdoing by Paul's former business partners. Coffee knew this, but he intentionally conveyed to the public the false accusation Paul was a participant in the scam and intentionally defrauded people to increase his own profit by continuing to attack a well-known celebrity. Coffee also hoped to achieve attention and publicity as he knew that he was planning to publish a new YouTube video about Paul the following day, and increased views of that video would mean greater profit for Coffee. Can't second guess his motivation. I don't know. That might be it, but that's speculation. To date, Coffee's June 29, 2023 X post has been viewed more than 6.5 million times, and the comments on the post are universally negative toward Paul and accepting of Coffee's claim that Paul had scammed those who bought CryptoZoo egg NFTs or Zoo tokens. Following day on June 30th, Coffee published to his Coffeezilla YouTube channel a video with the title, "Logan Paul Scam Isn't Over." The video purported to be about Paul's effort to buy out holders of CryptoZoo egg NFTs, but in reality, the purpose of the video was to continue to lob false accusations at Paul so Coffee could profit from achieving more views by leveraging Paul's fame and celebrity. In addition to the title directly accusing Paul of intentionally defrauding people via a scam business, the opening lines of the video refer to CryptoZoo as a scam created by Logan Paul. Coffee left no doubt that he is accusing Paul of intentionally defrauding individuals who bought egg NFTs or zoo tokens by referring to those people as his, i.e. Logan Paul's, victims, declaring to his audience that Paul was guilty and his offer to reimburse buyers of egg NFTs was an admission of guilt, and stating Paul was just pretending that he'd changed. To date, Coffee's June 30th, 2023 YouTube video has been viewed nearly 6 million times, and once again, commenters who viewed the video were universally negative toward Paul and accepting of Coffee's claim that Paul had committed financial fraud. So something tells me that the people leaving these comments didn't really watch all of the videos. On January 4th, Paul officially announced on X that his CryptoZoo egg NFT buyback was operational, posted a link to the website where holders could submit a claim for a buyback, and Paul committed up to $2.3 million of his own money to that effort. Also on January 4th, 2024, Paul filed public legal claims against Ibanez and Greenbaum. And this is the cross claims. The very next day on January 5th, Coffee published a video to the Coffeezilla YouTube page with the title, Logan Paul's Refund. As with the previous video from June 2023, the January 5th, 2024 video purported to be about Paul's offer to buy out holders of CryptoZoo egg NFTs. But again, Coffee's real purpose in publishing the video was to make more money by airing false accusations about Paul. Once again, Coffee repeatedly accused Paul of scamming those who bought egg NFTs or zoo tokens. He continued by accusing Paul of engaging in a massive con and ridiculing Paul's buyback efforts by saying that Logan Paul is not a hero for doing this or making things right. He's a scammer who's offering a minority refund as a last-ditch effort to save his wallet and his reputation. To date, Coffee's January 5th, 2024 video has been viewed over 5 million times, and once again, commenters who viewed the video understood Coffee to be accusing Paul of committing financial fraud. Notably, the January 5th YouTube video mentioned Paul's cross claims. Indeed, he harped on the fact that some of the factual information in which the claims excerpted from the communications that quite clearly showed Paul was not a participant in any scam, communications that he had previously chosen not to include in his own reporting, even though he had access to them all along. Paul's NFT buyback was an enormous success. Undeterred by Coffee's renewed defamatory campaign, Paul pressed forward with the complex plan to conduct a buyback of CryptoZoo NFTs between January 4th, 2024 and February 8th. The buyback program received claims covering about a third of the total CryptoZoo NFTs that were purchased. Okay, so this ran for basically a month. So if you weren't completely aware of it or whatever, you lost out. But he admits here, Logan Paul, that only a third of those people. So what about the other 2/3? At the set buyback price of 0.1 ETH each, Paul personally committed a total of 295.6 ETH to the effort. The funds were officially dispersed on March 25th. Given ETH's exchange rate that day, Paul was ultimately able to disperse over $1 million of his own money to buy back egg NFTs from NFT holders who submitted a claim. It bears repeating that Paul never received any funds. Okay, I get it. We know he didn't receive any funds. But the whole point now is, what about making whole all the people who lost out on this thing? Not just that 1/3 that bought the egg NFT. What about the other 2/3 of them? And what about all the people who lost money on the zoo token? Nevertheless, Paul was heartened by the success of the buyback, the high level of participation, and the amount of funds he was able to distribute to eligible holders. It sounds like Logan Paul set an amount that he was willing to pay or to refund, but we don't hear about how that compared to what they actually lost. With bad actors like Greenbaum and Ibanez, who actually made millions off of CryptoZoo, shirked accountability and did nothing to help those who lost money trying to participate in the game, and in Greenbaum's case appeared to have fled the country, Paul stepped up and did the right thing to try and bring some closure to the whole unfortunate episode. Partially, in my opinion, and I think that's what Coffeezilla was trying to point out. Not surprisingly, Coffee never commented on the enormous success of the buyback program, or the fact that Paul resoundingly delivered on his promise. In Coffee's defense, I don't think he's there to be Logan Paul's cheerleader. And I think what Coffee was saying was, well, 1/3 got some money back for the NFTs that they bought that are basically worthless now. 2/3 didn't get anything. And all the people who bought Zoo tokens who lost money didn't get anything. Basically, now we're leading up to what he's asking for. So here's his first claim for relief. Liable per se for statements in the June 29, 2023 X post. On June 29, 2023, Coffee published a post on his Coffeezilla account on the social media site X. The post stated Logan Paul really is the type of dude to thank you when you expose his scam, then block you when you remind him to pay up. The post was published to a worldwide audience on X's platform, and as of May 20, 2024, it had been viewed 6.5 million times. As a direct and proximate result of the publication of the false and defamatory June 29, 2023 X post, Paul has suffered damages including injury to reputation, embarrassment, humiliation, emotional distress, and economic damages in an amount to be determined at trial. Second claim for relief, liable per se for statements in the June 30th, 2023 YouTube video, Logan Paul's scam isn't over. On June 30th, 2023, Coffee published a video on his Coffeezilla account on the digital video sharing site youtube.com. Video was titled Logan Paul's Scam Isn't Over. In addition to the title directly accusing Logan Paul frauding people via a scam business, the opening lines of the video refer to CryptoZoo as a scam created by Logan Paul. Coffee left no doubt that he was accusing Paul of intentionally defrauding individuals who bought egg NFTs or Zoo tokens by referring to these people as Logan Paul's victims. Declaring to his audience that Paul was guilty and his offer to reimburse buyers was an admission of guilt, and stating Paul was just pretending he'd changed. The video was published to a worldwide audience on YouTube, and as of June 25th, 2024, it has been viewed 5,899,880 times. June 30th, 2023 video was intended to convey and was understood by viewers of ordinary intelligence to convey the factual accusation that Paul created CryptoZoo to engage in a financial scam, i.e. fraudulent financial conduct. The June 30th, 2023 video is false and defamatory. The June 30th, 2023 video is libelous per se in that it tends to affect Paul in his office, profession, or occupation. By publication of the June 30th, 2023 YouTube video, Finlayson caused harm to Paul's reputation. Coffee published the June 30th, 2023 YouTube video with reckless disregard for the truth, in that he was aware at the time of publication that the statements were false, or at a minimum, had a high degree of awareness that the statements were probably false. As direct and proximate result of the publication, Paul has suffered damages including injury to reputation, embarrassment, humiliation, emotional distress, etc. Third claim for relief, liable per se for statements in the January 5th, 2024 YouTube video, Logan Paul's refund. On January 5th, 2024, Coffee published a video on his Coffeezilla account on the digital video sharing site YouTube. The video was titled Logan Paul's refund. In the video, Coffee accused Paul of orchestrating a massive con, referred to Paul as a serial scammer, and referred those who bought Zoo tokens or CryptoZoo egg NFTs as the people he scammed. The video was published to a worldwide audience on YouTube, and as of June 25th, 2024, it has been viewed 5,161,941 times. The January 5th, 2024 YouTube video is of and concerning Paul. The January 5th video was intended to convey and was understood to convey the factual accusation that Paul created CryptoZoo to engage in financial scam, i.e. fraudulent financial conduct. Video is defamatory. The video is libelous per se, and that it tends to affect Paul in his office, profession, or occupation. By publication of the video, Coffee caused harm to Paul's reputation. Coffee published the video with a reckless disregard for the truth. As a direct and proximate result of the publication of the false and defamatory video, Paul has suffered damages including injury to reputation, etc. His prayer for relief. Wherefore, plaintiff Logan Paul respectfully requests that the court award him relief against defendant as follows. Actual and compensatory damages in excess of $75,000, as well as interest, reasonable attorney's fees, and costs as allowed by law. Punitive damages as allowed by law, and such other and further relief as the court deems appropriate, and he demands a jury trial. That's what he's raising for his claims for his reputation being defamed and ruined, allegedly. Sort of sum up the position. So, I understand where Logan Paul is coming from, even though I'm not a fan. I agree with him that the statements were manipulated to make it appear in order to entice the viewers that Logan Paul was perpetuating a scam, because that draws people's interest. From Coffeezilla's perspective, he didn't actually say that Logan Paul in the end was a scammer. Logan Paul even admits that Coffeezilla fleshed out the whole situation in those videos and explained the situation so that it was clear that Logan Paul didn't scam people. Now, he's focusing a lot on the latest videos in 2024 where Coffeezilla is criticizing the buyback. You know, no, I don't think it's right to call him a scammer, but I think he hasn't, in my opinion, taken full responsibility in trying to make the whole situation right. There's a class action lawsuit pending that he has to contend with, which will be interesting to watch how that goes. He's now filed cross claims in that suit against those two guys to, basically put the responsibility off onto them as the ones who need to be held accountable to the people who filed the lawsuit for their losses. But again, in my opinion, I don't know that the buyback went far enough. He admits that only a third of the buyers actually got anything. Again, it's my understanding that they didn't get all of the money that they paid back, that Paul set a certain amount he was willing to pay each of them. And so, what about if they lost money above and beyond that? Granted, they willingly and knowingly signed releases, but, I think Coffeezilla's point is Logan Paul partially did this to get them to sign releases so he doesn't have to worry about those people filing litigation or becoming part of litigation in this matter. And basically by accepting the money, they've now given up their right to sue him. You tell me what you think down below. I'd really appreciate hearing it. I will keep you updated as this thing develops. As you know, there's going to be much more coming in the way of pleadings, so I'll keep you up to date. Let me know what you think down below. I'd be very interested. Now, I want to thank a few people who bought me a cup of coffee. I would like to thank Kiersey Faltros for buying me 3 coffees. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Celeste who bought me 2 coffees. Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank Rachel who bought me 1 coffee. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate coffees. As you know, that's for me. The rest of the stuff is for the cats and towards their vet bills and their care. Thank you guys so much. There's nobody to thank from the Amazon wish list this week, but those of you who send us stuff, thank you so much. I also want to thank, of course, our Patreon patrons. Thank you so much, you guys, for your monthly support. And I know I say this all the time, but that money goes to help defer the cat's monthly vet bill. It helps out a little bit with that, and I really appreciate that very much. I also really appreciate all of our channel members. What you contribute each month to also goes towards the cat's vet bill. Thank you so much, you guys. We are so happy to have you as part of our family. I hope you guys are having a good summer. I know the weather's been kind of weird and awful. I hope you guys are staying safe and cool. Anyways, I've got another lawsuit update coming in a couple of days. Should be up. But in the interim, take care of yourselves, love one another, and I will see you in the next one.
Pretty please. Subscribe, like, and hit the bell. I get a treat for every new sub. Thank you.